I never imagined my life would change when I met a millionaire who didn't see my struggles. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The weight of the world sat on my chest, real and suffocating. I was drowning in bills, anxiety wrapping around me like a vice, and then he appeared, a perfect storm of charm and dollar signs. His name was Adrian, and he stood there, dazzling in an expensive suit, while my heart raced like a caged bird. I caught my breath, unsure if it was the stench of burnt coffee from the cafe or his intense gaze pinning me to the wall. It was like he stepped out of another realm, where people don't worry about rent or empty fridges. I felt exposed, a raw wound beneath layers of skin, yet he smiled as if he could see right through me. My cousin Tara was with me, her laughter a bright flicker in the heavy air. She whispered, "You should talk to him." I shook my head, but the truth was that I couldn't. Blood pumped through my ears with each heartbeat, drowning out her encouragement. After all, what would a millionaire want with someone like me? A girl who wore one pair of shoes until they screamed for retirement? The cafe walls closed in, swallowing my uncertainty. As Adrian's laughter broke like glass, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. He had that aura, the kind that could encase you in warmth or freeze you in place. I stole glances, and there it was something in his eyes that hinted at secrets or tragedy. Had he been through a storm, too? We met again, and I dared to glance at his Lithian abundance of luxury, light years away from my struggles. His yacht sparkled on the dock, whispering promises I couldn't fathom. Did he even know what it was like to count change for a bus fare? I felt like I was hovering between two worlds, a bridge straining under the weight of my reality and his, but there was something unsettling in his kindness. A tenderness, raw and inexplicable. I often found myself staring at his hands, fingers dancing over his phone screen as though it held the answer to a different universe. He didn't judge my fraying edges, he simply reached out. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, and then the night changed everything. Torrential rain fell, and the city lights flickered like nervous stars. I found myself sitting beside him on that grand yacht, surrounded by opulence that suffocated me. It felt unreal, a dream that shimmered like a mirage. We talked about everything, yet I felt my heart caution me. With every charming word he spoke, my heart trembled with uncertainty. Could someone as bright as him truly see the darkness I carried? What if the truth bubbled below? I clutched my hand tightly, a firm reminder of who I was. What was I even doing here, in this magnificent chaos? Just then, a loud crash rattled the night, followed by an eerie silence. The staff rushed and whispers cascaded around us, mocking the tension that hung thick in the air. I turned to Adrian, our eyes locked in a moment of shared panic, then realization washed over me. There was a secret soaking through his smile, something deeper than just wealth and charm, and I was one tiny step away from uncovering it. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain continued to pelt against the yacht's pristine surfaces, the sound a haunting melody that accompanied the growing sense of unease. I could feel Adrian's hand brushing against mine, the warmth grounding me while my mind swirled with questions. What was looming beneath his charm? Why had that crash felt like a breaking point? As the staff exchanged frantic whispers, anxiety seeped into my bones. My heart raced at the thought that perhaps this was all too good to be true. Adrian's laughter, which had once filled me with comfort, now echoed hollow beneath the surface of this storm. The lavish surroundings suddenly felt alien, a glaring contrast to who I was and the turbulent life I lived. I should check on that, Adrian finally said, his voice tight, revealing a slight crack in his poise. He stood up abruptly, leaving me alone but not empty-handed. His warmth lingered. I experienced a fleeting moment of vulnerability sitting there. I was just a girl lost at sea, with nothing but the memory of too many unpaid bills whispering in my ears. I leaned against the railing, looking out into the dark abyss of the water. The vastness mirrored my thoughts. But in that emptiness, I was surprisingly met with an unexpected flicker of kindness. A group of crew members, their faces strained and tense, gathered along the deck not just to manage chaos but to share discreet jokes, their laughter weaving through the tension like a lifeline thrown into the tumultuous sea. It was heartening to see that even amid panic, humanity found a way to shine through. Adrian returned quickly, his ease replaced by a guarded expression. "We'll be fine. Just a minor issue with the engine," he reassured me, but the flash in his eyes stirred a deeper fear. It was a look I had seen before on countless other faces, a sign that something important was being kept from me. My breath hitched. What kind of minor issue could cause such a disruption? Moments passed, the sound of the rain enveloping us in silence. He reached for my hand, intertwining my fingers with his. "I'm glad you're here," he whispered, yet his voice betrayed a flicker of tension I couldn't ignore. "I didn't want to be alone tonight." The weight of those words made me shiver. Was that what we both were? Two souls caught in storms of our own making, trying, desperately, to find solace in each other? The thought twisted in my chest, a bittersweet ache. "That I feel like you're hiding something," I ventured, heart pounding as the words left my lips. The air between us became taut, a fragile thread waiting to snap. For a brief second, despair flickered in his eyes, the kind of despair I recognized all too well, one I wore like a cloak and carried with me every single day. I was navigating dangerous waters, but maybe he was too. His gaze hardened, the boyish grin dissolved, revealing a man burdened by something invisible and overwhelming. "There are things you don't want to know, things about my life that would only hurt you." He released my hand hesitantly, and the chill of his absence stung. For a moment, the world fell silent as I weighed his words. The irony twisted in my gut. It wasn't his wealth or status that intimidated me, it was his pain that felt all too familiar. I felt a strange urge to pull him back toward me, comfort him as he had comforted me, even if I didn't know what darkness lay within. Before I could respond, the yacht lurched violently, a sudden jerk that threw us both against the railing. Exclamations erupted around us, and I gasped, my heart plummeting as Adrian wrapped his arm around my waist to steady me. "Sit down," he urged, his voice laced with urgency. I complied, finding a place on the plush cushions, hoping he would sit beside me. Instead, he was up again, scanning the deck with an intensity one had never seen. "Adrian," I managed, the tremor in my voice breaking the fragile stillness. "What's really happening?" Just as I spoke, the lights flickered and dimmed, plunging us into a darkness that felt cavernous and suffocating. My insides twisted as a sense of dread washed over me. It was as though the world had turned its back on this moment, casting shadows on the truth I desperately wanted to uncover. In the darkness, I reached for Adrian, searching for his presence, and then the shocking revelation erupted like fire in the night. A figure emerged from the shadows of the deck, glistening with rain, someone I never expected to see. My heart sank as the truth hit me like a tidal wave. The familiar face I had hoped to leave behind was standing right in front of me. And suddenly, my struggles felt more palpable than ever, colliding with a reality I wasn't prepared to face. The figure stood there, a haunting silhouette illuminated by the sporadic flickers of the yacht's emergency lights. My breath caught in my throat as recognition crashed over me like the relentless waves outside. It was him, Ethan. The ghost of my past, the man I thought I'd escaped. Memories flooded back, sharp and unyielding, the love that had turned to betrayal, the trust that had been shattered into a million pieces. "Claire," he said, his voice a low rumble, mixing with the sound of the rain and the distant thunder. There was a quality to it that held my name like a desperate plea, but the warmth was replaced by a chill crawling up my spine. He took a step closer, a half-hearted smile painted on his lips, yet his eyes were filled with a turmoil that mirrored my own. I glanced back at Adrian, who stood rigid, his expression shifting from confusion to fury. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice like granite, steady but laced with anger. There was an intensity in his gaze that sent shivers down my spine. I could feel the tension coiling between the three of us, a taut wire ready to snap. Ethan opened his mouth but hesitated, either surprised by Adrian's presence or struck by the reality of our shared past. "I came to find you," he finally managed, the words stumbling out as though they were a confession. "Why?" My voice was barely a whisper, confusion and dread mingling like a ferocious storm within me. "You had your chance. Hear me out." He raised his hands, splayed open in a gesture of surrender. "I made mistakes and I thought I could let you go without ever looking back. But I was wrong." Spare me the "I'm sorry" act," I interrupted, my heart pounding. "You don't get to walk back into my life after everything." My gaze locked onto Adrian's, searching for the support I desperately needed. But his eyes blazed with an intensity that made me feel cornered, like a prey caught between two predators. "No, Claire," Ethan pressed forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "I've changed." I needed to explain what happened, how I realized. He faltered, glancing at Adrian, then back at me. "How I realized I love you." Adrian's jaw clenched, and it felt as though the air tightened around us, compressing into a singular moment of chaos. The storm outside burst forth with renewed ferocity, lightning illuminating his taut silhouette as though he were ready to shield me from whatever came next. But inside, I felt like I was being torn apart, swept into a cyclone of memories, love, betrayal, and pain. "You don't get to say that now, Ethan," I hissed, grounding my voice with an intensity one didn't think I possessed. "You left me. You chose your life over mine." I could see the hurt flicker across his features, and for a moment, that boy I once loved seemed to resurface fragile and pained, battling the shadows of guilt and loss that haunted him. "I know, and it haunts me every day. But please, just one chance to explain." I ached for him, for the truth lodged deep inside me. Yet, the question loomed larger than the storm raging outside: was there room for him in my heart again, especially when Adrian's presence had ignited a flicker of hope, a chance for a life that seemed unreachable moments ago? Then Adrian stepped forward, shoulders squared, his voice low and fierce. "She doesn't owe you anything, Ethan. She's moved on." The echo of those words ricocheted against the walls of my mind, breaking apart the fragments of my sense of stability. "Moved on?" Ethan spat, incredulous, hurt swirling wildly in his eyes. "You think you can just come in and take her from me? She's enough." I shouted, the panic rising to the surface beneath the weight of the past and current conflicts barreling toward me. The tension was palpable, hanging in the air like a storm cloud about to burst. "This isn't about you two. It's about me. My choices. My life." A moment of silence settled over the deck, each of us panting as if the weight of the confession had stolen our breath. Just as the silence reached a breaking point, the lights flickered, plunging us once again into darkness. My heart raced, echoing loud in my ears, and then, just as abruptly, I felt a hand grasp mine, warm, steady, and grounding. Adrian's fingers laced through mine with a determination that sent a wave of hope crashing over me. "Come on," he said firmly as a flash of lightning illuminated his resolute expression. "We need to get inside, away from this chaos." But as I started to turn to follow him, Ethan pulled me back, his grip fierce but not hostile. "Don't you see? I'm here, now, and I promise I've changed. I can make things right." His words clashed against the roar of the storm, but deep within me, a tumult brewed, an internal battle waging between Jonathan's previous comforts and Adrian's present certainty. Who had I become? Who did I truly want to be? Just as I opened my mouth to respond, another violent lurch rocked the yacht, and the lights dimmed to silence. A chilling realization crawled up my spine. I felt a sinking dread that this storm was far from over, and neither was the storm brewing in my heart. In that moment of darkness, fear wrapped its cold fingers around me, tightening, leaving me clinging to both of the men before me, each representing a different path I could take. And then, shrouded in the heavy silence of the tempest, I knew could only choose one life to explore. But as I opened my mouth to declare my choice, the next sudden lurch of the yacht pushed us all against the side, and a deafening sound echoed a break in the hull. The impending chaos unleashed a wave of sheer terror. The storm outside had become nothing compared to the tsunami of emotions inside me. I was left staring into Adrian's eyes, brimming with unspoken words, while Ethan lurked in the shadows, a reminder of what I desperately tried to leave behind. A decision had to be made, but just as the clarity settled in my heart, the world around us cracked. I felt the yacht begin to tilt, and the ground beneath my feet slipped away. The yacht lurched violently, throwing us against the railing, echoes of splintering wood filling the air as the storm outside climaxed. Heart racing, I felt the world falling away beneath me, my very existence hanging perilously on the edge, and all I could see were the faces of two men twisted in worry and determination. One was a reminder of a past that we stole together, and one was a hard-won present I didn't want to lose. Stay close. Adrian shouted, his voice booming over the tempest, steadying me with a fierce grip on my shoulder. He was my anchor through the whirlpool of despair. Ethan stood rigid, torn between reaching out to save or retreating, his own panic weaving through the strands of desperation. We can't stay here. There might be a way out. We have to get off this boat. His eyes darted toward the door leading back to the cabin, a path that suddenly felt like a dark tunnel leading to uncertainty. That I felt a scream rising in me, but there was no time to vocalize it. The walls of the yacht began to groan under the pressure of the wind, and I could sense that time was running short. With a sudden fierce flurry, another wave crashed into the side of the yacht, sending us sprawling. I felt myself slip away from Adrian's grip, my heart pounding as the darkness coalesced around me. I instinctively reached for Ethan, his presence a bond forged from long-standing loyalty, or perhaps an old flame that refused to extinguish. Claire. Adrian shouted, desperation threading through his words as he lunged to catch me before I could slip away entirely. His presence enveloped me, grounding me, reminding me of why I had chosen to cast aside the ghost of my past. The fierce warmth of his hands, powerful and protective, sent a wave of emotion flooding my senses. My head swirled in confusion, a tempest more relentless than the storm outside. What do we do? I rasped, looking back and forth between them, feeling that each moment stretched longer than the last. A culmination of all we had gone through, suddenly crashing down into an abyss of urgency. Follow me. Adrian yelled, shattering the tension that had stiffened the air around us. He grabbed my hand, leading us both toward the cabin, churning waves of adrenaline fueling him as he shouted directives. Ethan, help me with this. Adrian commanded, pointing to a loose hatch with ropes threatening to slip apart, the water surging ominously close. Ethan's face flickered with uncertainty, but then determination settled in. He nodded and rushed to help Adrian secure the hatch. I watched them work together, bewilderment washing over me. Even in crisis, their clash could morph into collaboration, a raw intensity blooming in the face of danger. That I wanted to believe that goodness could emerge from this chaos. Hope rippled through me, though it battled against the relentless shadows of doubt that still whispered in the recesses of my mind. As the door flew open, a gale surged through the narrow space, nearly knocking me over. We stumbled inside, panting as we braced ourselves against the closing door, desperately clinging to the security it provided. The yacht creaked ominously, as if it were protesting our very presence inside. Look to the front, Adrian urged, kneeling to inspect the small porthole leading out. We need to see how bad it is up top. I can't. I barely managed, grounding my heart against the pounding echo of panic inside me. I can't go out there again. Not now, not with him. I glanced back at Ethan, whose anguish mirrored my own turmoil. Ethan lifted his eyes to mine, their depths brimming with vulnerability. I never meant for this to happen, Claire. If I could take back the past. Enough with the past. Adrian snapped, the tension of the moment making his patience ebb away. We don't have the luxury of winding back time. We need to focus on surviving now. I felt the weight of my choices like a leaden anchor in my chest, the heart-wrenching possibility that our lives might unravel in an instant. For every flicker of kindness I had found in Adrian, the familiar ache of Ethan's presence pushed against my resolve, testing the boundaries of where my loyalty lay. Adrian, I murmured, instinctively reaching for his hand again. What do we do? What if we can't make it? A flash of anger flickered across Adrian's face, but it quickly melted into steely determination. We will, he said, fierce and unwavering. I won't let anything happen to you. He turned to Ethan, drawing the tension taut once more between the three of us. But we can't survive if we bicker and brawl. There's no room for that now. We have to work together. Ethan nodded, the shadows of regret swimming in his gaze as he locked eyes with Adrian, the unspoken truth hanging heavy in the air. The yacht lurched again, this time with far more violence, sending all of us crashing to the floor. The lights flickered out once more, plunging us into darkness as my heart raced with fear. Everyone, hold on. Adrian shouted, pulling me closer, a protective arm encircling us both. Then came the sound, a crushing roar as the hull buckled under the weight of the water, a dreadful screech echoing in the dark. The panic surged anew, drowning out every rational thought. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, the catering staff's emergency flashlight flickered to life, illuminating the chaos and revealing a cracked wall where water now gushed in, flooding the cabin with frigid certainty. The realization hit hard. Night could become our last stand. With disbelief pouring through me, the gravity of the moment struck. I felt the weight of the choice I had to make again, layered with so much heartache and hope, around the men who embodied each fork in my road. But then, just as quickly as clarity arrived, another wave surged, tossing us down into chaos. My vision blurred, trapped on the cusp of a decision that would alter the course of our lives forever. With every ounce of strength, I clung to Adrian, aware that my heart was as scattered as the broken pieces around us. But then, an unexpected thought whispered through the roar of despair: what if I could find a way to save us all? And with that revelation, the storm outside raged on, but the real battle had only just begun. The darkness pressed in from all sides, a suffocating shroud as the wind howled outside, mingling with the ominous groans of the yacht. Water surged around us, splashing at my feet, a reminder that time was ticking down, and our precarious refuge was crumbling. I felt the pulse of panic quickening my breath, but somewhere in that sea of uncertainty, I felt strength heavy yet flickering, like a candle fighting against the tempest. Adrian, Ethan, we can't just sit here. I shouted over the din, my voice rising as the fear bubbled to the surface. We need to find a way to plug that breach. Adrian's eyes shone with determination, even as worry etched deeper lines in his handsome features. We can't fight the ocean, Claire. But we have to buy time. He gripped my shoulder, urgency crackling in the air. If we can reach the lifeboats, we might be able to save ourselves. Ethan pushed to his feet, lifting his chin as courage surged in his chest. It'll help, he said, a flicker of old light igniting in the shadows of his guilt. If we work together, he trailed off, his eyes locking on mine, a silent plea sparking between us. That I nodded, steeling my heart for what lay ahead. Let's do this. The three of us moved in a frantic dance, navigating the swell of water as we scoured the room for anything that could stop the brewing disaster. Adrian rummaged through drawers, tossing aside useless items: corkscrew, napkins, anything that felt like a lifeline in this wave of despair. Here, he exclaimed, pulling out a life vest wedged between a couple of boxes. We'll need these. He passed them around, our fingers brushing slightly, the warmth offering a momentary comfort amidst the thunderous rage surrounding us. Now what? I questioned, feeling my resolve shake as water began to leak higher, creeping up my ankles. Look. Ethan pointed toward the hatch above, a glimmer of an idea shining behind his eyes. We can tie those ropes together and create something to hold off the water long enough to reach the lifeboats. The desperation in his voice ignited a flicker of hope. Good thinking. Adrian moved swiftly, tearing off scraps of fabric from the life vests, knotting them purposefully. I felt a swell of admiration for both men, even as the confusion in my heart deepened. Like every undulating wave around us, that I joined in their efforts, hands trembling as I tied knots with the shaky precision born from fear. Laughter bubbled from me unexpectedly, absurd against the chaos, as I remembered the countless nights I'd tie knots for fishing with my father. I never imagined I would need these skills for a stormy night on a luxury yacht. Ethan gave a lopsided smile, contrasting the grim reality. Who would have thought, right? As we worked, those moments of levity reminded me that, sometimes, beauty bloomed even in the depths of chaos. It was a spark, a fleeting reminder that our lives once contained laughter, light, love, yet amidst those memories, an ache lingered, binding me closer to both men. We tied our makeshift barrier against the door, but the sea continued to rage, hunger clawing at the edges of our fragile sanctuary. With one last pull, I felt the ropes snap tight, securing our feeble fortress against the deluge. The crashing waves around us echoed all of my worries. My heart was a pendulum swinging between hope and despair while my mind oscillated between the two men who had come to embody the choices I weighed. Adrian stepped back, hands on hips, frustration surfacing as realization dawned on him. We won't survive if we don't get out of here. This won't hold forever, there. Ethan pointed toward the small porthole, glimmering against the cold and rain. That could be our way out. The fear clawed at my insides again as I approached the window, the rushing water taunting me with its cold grasp. Is it safe? I voiced my hesitation. What if we make it worse? You'll force us out there into the storm. Adrian challenged, the tension thickening as he stepped closer, his eyes dark and intense. You could very well doom us all by doing nothing. I fell silent, feeling the weight of their expectations like stones across my chest. My heart was a battleground, a silent war of feelings amidst the chaos, torn by the desire for safety and the imminent danger inching closer. Claire, Ethan murmured, stepping forward, his vulnerability raw and open, choose. We cannot stay here. You have to trust me. He reached out, his fingers brushing mine, both a question and a lifeline. Adrian's sharp inhalation echoed in the small space, a reminder that each word was layered with the weight of our past. Don't let him sway you, Claire. Your safety is what matters. Just focus on what's in front of us. Heart racing, I felt my own breath catch. I was on the cusp of something monumental, teetering on the edge of choice. I looked between both men, their hopes colliding sharply with the chaos outside. The wind howled with ferocity, cutting off my thought. But in that breathless moment, I saw clearly not just the danger outside, but the connections I had forged. It hit me that our survival depended not only on choosing the right path but also on recognizing the bonds that could hold us together through even the fiercest storms. Just then, the yacht lurched violently once more, as though the ocean itself was determined to swallow us whole. I lost my footing, tumbling toward the porthole, desperation mixed with hope coursing through me. Claire! Both men shouted, the unified cry resonating amid the chaos as their hands reached toward me, widening the gulf of separation. Their voices faded into the maelstrom of sound, but a revelation surged within me. I realized I had to embrace the storm, the uncertainty, the heartache, because that's where my true strength lay. As I reached out toward the gleaming light outside, adrenaline coursing through my body, it suddenly dawned on me that choosing one path might mean losing the other, a bittersweet truth marred by my own indecision. But in that pivotal moment, everything blurred. I stumbled toward the porthole, diving into the thrashing sea outside, ready to confront the storm head-on, and as I fell through, I heard cries of surprise from both men. Nothing could prepare me for the danger that awaited beyond the yacht's fragile shell, nor the truths that would come crashing in like the waves surrounding me. In one final thought before the cold water enveloped me completely, I realized I was about to face the hardest thing of all, the unknown, and maybe, just maybe, that was precisely where I was meant to be. The ocean swallowed me whole, the salt stinging my eyes as I broke through the surface. Adrenaline surged within me, the chill of the seawater wrapping around me like a shroud. My heart raced, but even amidst the chaos, I could hear faint cries from the yacht, their echoes choked by the fury of the storm. Claire! It was Adrian, his voice cutting through the tumult like a beacon. Come back! But I kept swimming, propelled by instinct, fear pushing me forward. I had left the confines of the yacht, and while panic threatened to consume me, a sliver of clarity emerged. The storm roared around me, yet I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of liberation. I was free from the weight of my choice, a choice I had faltered over while the world crumbled underfoot. Above me, the clouds shifted, swirling like dark, angry giants. The waves towered high, crashing around me, and in that chaotic ballet, I could almost see the rhythm within the storm, an unyielding test I had to withstand. The pressure of it all bubbled up as I forced myself to keep my head above water. Memories flickered in the corners of my mind, afternoons spent laughing and fishing with my father, the serenity of our little lake, the taste of warmth and sunshine. Those memories grounded me. The storm raged, but they were my lighthouse, guiding me through the storm-wrought darkness. That I broke through the surface again, gasping for air, when a powerful wave knocked me off balance, dragging me under. I fought, both against the water and my own rising despair. My lungs burned, and my limbs felt like lead. I was only a speck in the throes of a mighty sea, and just as I felt the panic rise, a hand shot through the water and gripped my wrist. "Hold on." It was Ethan, the sheer force of his presence pulling me back toward the surface. I felt strength surge through him as he dragged me alongside him, the lifeboat not far off, a glinting promise on the horizon of despair. I wanted to hold on to that promise, but guilt threatened to drown me as I processed what I had left behind. "Adrian!" I gasped, twisting my head in search of him as we surfaced. My chest heaved, the grief of my choices crashing over me as the water thundered against the lifeboat. Would he follow? Would he even know where to look? Ethan's grip tightened as he guided me closer to the lifeboat. "We need to get in," he urged, his voice a raw burst of strength against the backdrop of the fury around us. The lifeboat rocked violently as we approached. I could see Adrian clinging to the edge of the yacht with a mixture of stubbornness and fear. The sight sent a fissure of panic through me. "Go back for him." My voice was raw, carrying the weight of everything unsaid. The two men had come to symbolize my conflicting desires, and it felt suffocating, but Ethan's gaze bore into mine, the resolve strong, yet I could see a flicker of doubt. "Well, get him, but we have to get you in first. It's too dangerous out here." Every pulse of my heart echoed my internal struggle. I could either step into safety or risk everything to save Adrian. I was torn. Yet deep within, I sensed the flicker of warmth that Ethan had ignited when he rescued me. It reminded me of how we each had the capacity for bravery. Perhaps my rescue didn't mean abandoning Adrian, it meant choosing strength and solidarity. "Please, Claire, just get in," Ethan called, desperation threading his tone, and then, amid the rolling waves and the chaos, I made my choice. I locked eyes with Ethan, allowing my heart to guide me. I can't leave him. With one last surge of determination, I turned my back to the lifeboat and plunged under the water again, swimming back toward the yacht. The frigid sea closed around me, and I kicked with everything I had. Every memory, every ounce of love pulled me forward. I broke the surface once more, gasping and searching. The yacht was beginning to tilt dangerously, the water showing no mercy as it threatened to claim us all. "Claire!" Adrian's voice rang out again, nearer now, palpable with urgency. I swung my head, and there he was, fighting the crashing waves to reach me. His face was a picture of determination despite the terror surrounding him. "You came back." The disbelief in his tone filled the emptiness in my heart with strength. "I can't leave you," I shouted, adrenaline fueling my desperate strokes as I reached for him. The world spiraled through shades of fear and hope, and in that moment, time slowed. I understood what real courage meant, not merely a decision but a collective heartbeat that resonated through survival. Adrian reached out, his fingers brushing mine, and as he grasped my wrist, I felt the weight of my choice reverberate through us. But just as I felt the pull of hope, the yacht heaved ominously, a deep growl rumbling under the water. With a sudden violent jerk, the yacht tilted sharply, sending a nightmarish ballet of chaos as water began spilling over its edge. "Hang on!" Adrian screamed over the roar. But the ocean was claiming its toll. The ground beneath us shifted, and before either of us could react, the yacht erupted into a cloud of wooden debris and sea spray. Adrian and I flung ourselves together, but the current dragged us apart, the churning water swallowing the remnants of our fragile sanctuary, and distance faded into nothingness. In one horrifying moment, I felt the air rush from my lungs, and suddenly, silence enveloped me, darkness creeping in as I fought against the weight of uncertainty, my last thought echoing against the storm's might. Where had the choice led me now? What awaited in the churning depths? The darkness swallowed me whole, a heavy blanket that pressed against my chest as I tumbled beneath the surface. Panic clawed at me, the weight of my decision crashing against the walls of my sanity. I could not let go of Adrian, I needed to find him. The logic of survival warred with the instinct of love, and in that dark abyss, I flailed, reaching out for a glimmer of hope, but the ocean consumed my last breaths, each moment stretching into eternity as I was swallowed deeper. I fought not only to breathe but to remember. Flashes of warmth pulsed through the haze, where sunlight bathed me in familiar joy, Dad's laughter, our family dinners, and the kindness of a friend who weathered storms with me. Each flickered memory ignited a ghost of strength, propelling me to claw towards the surface. Just as the last flickers of light began to fade, I felt something solid. Not a hand this time, but the rough edge of debris. Gasping, I pulled myself onto a piece of wreckage, the taste of saltwater mixed with a burning ache in my chest. I clung to it for dear life, my fingers curling around splintered edges, praying for the strength to endure. The storm still raged with vicious intensity above me. The waves lashed and howled, but I held on to the wreckage with remarkable resolve. Adrian! I called, my voice muffled in the chaos. Adrian, the silence that hung in the air pierced deeper than the ice-cold grip of the water. I stood, trembling as I squinted into the dark horizon, willing to see a sign. I was alone. Moments stretched into eternity, as confusion and despair battled for dominance. But even within that crushing weight of solitude, the rumble of the storm shifted. The winds changed direction, lightning flashed, and I caught a glimpse of chaos above. I could hear voices, shouting in the distance. Hope flickered within me anew. I searched the waves, scanning for the familiar silhouette of Adrian. The jagged edges of the wreckage dug into my palms, reminding me of the decisions that had led me here. But on that terrifying precipice of despair, something shifted again, as fragments of hope coalesced into a question. If I had chosen Adrian's love, would he not have done the same for me? Before I could dwell too deeply, unexpected rays of kindness pierced through my dark thoughts. A bright light shone from a distance. I kept waving, calling out, but the storm hid my cries. The tumult of water made my voice seem so small against the roaring tempest. Suddenly, a head popped up from the waves near me, a man's face, etched with urgency and kindness. It was Ethan. His expression held a mixture of relief and anguish. "Claire!" he shouted, cutting through the wind like a lifeline. "I found you." With renewed strength, I kicked off the wreckage and swam toward him, every stroke tethering me against the maelstrom of uncertainty. He reached out, gripping my wrist with the same unyielding fierceness he'd exhibited when he saved me before. Together, we pulled through the waves, fighting against the sheer force of the storm. "Adrian!" I gasped, scanning the tumult. "We have to find him." Before Ethan could respond, another bolt of lightning illuminated the horizon, revealing a shifting, swirling backdrop of water and debris. In that flash, I saw Adrian struggling against the currents, battling his own demons. A rush of anxiety enveloped me, but a flicker of hope ignited the space within me. Ethan followed my gaze, urgency pooling in his blue eyes. "We can do this, Claire." His encouragement surged through me. I seized the moment, pulling my weighted limbs from the depths of resolve. I would fight for both Adrian and Ethan, for love, for choice, and for my own burgeoning strength. "Go! I'll get him!" I shouted, surging forward with newfound force. As I propelled myself through the chaos, the water churned and crashed around me. My heart echoed with the rhythm of my countless choices. Every stroke became an affirmation of survival. I would not stand passive against the currents taking my love. Shouts of desperation mingled with each lashing wave as I reached deeper into the storm. My heart raced as I closed in on Adrian, each pulse a reminder of how close he was to the precipice of hope and despair. The rawness of my feelings filled my lungs and propelled me finally to his side. "Adrian!" I burst, my hand finding his, slipping through the water like a warm embrace. His face a blend of disbelief and hope met mine. "We're going to get through this together," but just as I felt the warmth of his hand, a violent wave crashed between us, pulling him away. My heart plummeted into a void of terror as I screamed his name. The tumult around us intensified, threatening to sever our connection. No. I cried, my voice torn by the storm. I fought the current, desperate to reach him again. The ache inside me was real and visceral, an emotional tether I could not sever. Fate, however, was cruel. A new surge of water cascaded over us, and in a breath, I was knocked off balance. I twisted, fighting against the chaos while keeping my eyes fixed on Adrian. But just as I thought I grasped the hope of our reunion, Ethan grasped my shoulder. "Claire, we need to go," he urged, the fire in his gaze urging me to save myself. But despair attached itself to my heart, a heavy weight that threatened to drown me again. Adrian's terrified face flickered into the depths, and I knew that my heart was divided. I couldn't leave him. Yet, as the waves pushed me away, the world around us dissolved for a moment. I thought of everything of love, struggle, and the choices that brought me here. But even as I swam against my own instincts, the reality of survival loomed strong. Just then, a strong arm pulled me upward, and a boat appeared, a ray of hope amidst the storm. The figure standing there was silhouetted against the angry sky, a vision of salvation. But as I looked back towards Adrian, the water swallowed him whole. What have I done? The question spiraled in a terrifying frenzy as I faced the unknown. But before I could leap back into the chaos, the figure shouted, "Get in!" New emotions surged through me, a mixture of fear, confusion, and a growing certainty that everything was about to change. The storm raged on, but my heart had already begun to shatter. The chaos of the storm faded behind me as the boat's engines roared to life, propelling me further into the uncertain void. I could still hear Adrian's desperate voice echoing in my mind, merging with the haunting fury of waves crashing against the vessel. I clung to the edge of the boat, heart racing, torn between the safety it offered and the man I might have just lost. "Claire." Ethan's voice broke through the clamor, his eyes mirroring the tempest outside. "We had to go. You would have drowned." "Adrian." I gasped, panic flooding my thoughts. "We need to go back. He's still out there." My voice trembled as I struggled to process the harrowing truth. The fierce storm had swept him away, swallowed by a darkness I feared I could never penetrate again. Ethan's hands tightened around my arms, grounding me. "He's a strong swimmer. He could be fighting." "Well, alert the Coast Guard, Claire. They'll wait." I interrupted, writhing from his grasp. "What if he needs me? What if he's Claire?" Ethan's urgent tone cut through my spiraling thoughts, anchoring me for a moment. "If you go back, you might end up like him. Think. What would Adrian want? Would he want you to drown trying to save him?" The weight of his words crashed against my heart. Ethan was right. Adrian would never forgive me if I sacrificed myself. But the aching emptiness of uncertainty clawed at my chest, threatening to unravel the resolve I desperately clung to. I didn't want to leave him, not like this. Just as despair threatened to envelop me, the figure on the boat stepped closer, a tall silhouette marred by shadows, silhouetted against the eerie glow of the distant lightning strikes. A stark contrast to the stormy backdrop, the figure extended a hand, a warm light amidst darkness. "Get on board. I can help find him." My gaze flickered from the life-saving figure to the roiling ocean. But how could I trust whoever this was? The fates of those I cared about were already tangled in waves I couldn't control. Yet clinging to fleeting hope seemed a better option than succumbing to the depths of anguish that threatened to drag me under. Without a word, I accepted the outstretched hand and stepped onto the deck, the firm deck beneath my feet grounding me momentarily. As I turned to look back, the storm roared louder, swallowing the last moments I'd shared with Adrian, a potent reminder of the fragility of life. The figure's features emerged slowly in the flickering light of the storm, revealing kind dark eyes that glimmered with humility and compassion. "I'm Nathan," he introduced softly, "I'm here to help you. A name me a lifeline." My heart echoed in rhythm with the pounding rain. You know him, Adrian? I know the area, Nathan replied, urgency drawn tight across his brow. I have resources. We can coordinate a search if you're willing to trust me. I weighed his words, searching for any sign of deceit but found only sincerity etched into his resolute expression. What if we're too late? I whispered, grief catching in the thread of each syllable. We won't know until we try, Nathan said, his voice steady and unwavering against the roar of the storm. Let's give him the chance he deserves. Together, that simple phrase ignited something inside me, a flicker of hope reignited amongst turmoil. As the boat surged forward, Ethan's resolve beside me turned to determination, apparently aligning with Nathan's conviction. We had to save Adrian. This couldn't be how our story ended. What do we need to do? I asked, pulling my drenched hair back from my face, my breathing steadier. There was power in conviction, igniting within me like the crackling lights illuminating the chaos surrounding us. First, contact the Coast Guard, Nathan instructed, gripping the boat's wheel with focused intensity as the light from the cabin flickered around us. I know some people who will be able to mobilize quickly. Need every available resource, Ethan nodded, stepping back to support Nathan's plans, and for a moment, we worked in tandem, united by love and the frantic need to find Adrian. But as Nathan's fingers danced across the control panel, I sensed an undercurrent of urgency, something deeper than just the storm outside. I caught a glimpse of Ethan, his countenance etched with a distinct shadow of concern that didn't quite settle with my heart. What is it, Ethan? I asked, sensing a fear lurking beneath his surface that we might be running out of time. He admitted. The storm is only going to get worse. If the currents shift, his unspoken fears danced in the air, pressing against the evolving tension within me. Would we be too late? I bit my lip, forcing my mind to silence those dark thoughts. Hope surged as Nathan pushed forward with unwavering strength. Before I could voice my worry, Nathan's gaze darted toward the horizon, where the storm seemed to converge, tendrils of fury entwined in a way that made my stomach drop. We need to curve around that edge, he declared. It's the quickest route to the search point. My heart sank, my mind desperately clawing at the urge to leap back into the churning sea. Just as I was about to speak, a blinding flash illuminated the horizon, revealing a reality none of us were prepared for. In that split second, I saw a massive shape breaching the surface, the unmistakable silhouette of a man struggling amidst the rolling waves. Desperation surged anew within me, a panic that threatened to engulf us. Adrian! I screamed, my voice catching in the torrent. My heart raced with a fear so potent that it could suffocate a lesser soul. I felt the boat lurch beneath me, the demand for action undeniable. Steady! Nathan shouted, adjusting the vessel's direction with fierce resolve as he aimed toward Adrian, but my mind spun with the reality of my own fear. I was terrified of what I might find, apprehension twisting uncomfortably in my core. And as I looked back at Ethan, his face reflected the same flicker of uncertainty, each moment suspended taut in the air between hope and despair. The storm raged on, drowning us in clashing emotions. Time stretched and warped around us, pushing against my resolve with every heartbeat. The precious moments delayed our chance. Suddenly, a sharp crash erupted above us as the boat rocked violently in the swell. The harsh roar of the wind snatched away my cries, yet inside, I clung desperately to the hope of finding Adrian alive. As we hurtled toward the ominous unseen split in the waves, my heart raced towards one terrifying realization: the storm had already claimed so much. Would I go to the depths again, fighting for a love that might vanish, but the flicker of the unknown ignited deep within me? If there was even a small chance to save him, I would take the plunge, no matter the cost. With madness roaring through every fiber of my being, I prepared to leap once more into darkness. And then, as the boat swung violently, I caught a terrible, heart-stopping glimpse: Adrian, moving beneath the surface, the waves closing in around him as the light flickered out. The sound of thunder roared above us as the boat twisted and turned, the relentless waves crashing against the hull like a drum of impending doom. My pulse raced in tandem with the chaos surrounding us. I could no longer hear Nathan's voice over the tempest, all that mattered was the figure desperately fighting below, a rescue eclipsed by my own trembling heart, Claire. Ethan's hand clutched my arm, the grip a stark reminder that I wasn't alone in this turmoil. His eyes were wide with both fear and determination. "We have to make sure we don't capsize, Adrian." I yelled again, the name tearing from my throat with a primal urgency. My heart felt heavy, as if the very waves were sinking it further into the abyss. "We can't lose him. We can't." In that moment, the boat shuddered again, forcing me to stumble backward. Ethan caught me, pulling me into his side, grounding me even as my mind raced with grief and dread. The world spun, darkness edging in from the corners of my vision as my desperation threatened to swallow me whole. "Claire, listen to me," Ethan said, his voice insistent through the winds. "We have to find a way to stay stable. If you try to dive in now, you'll risk both our lives. We'll lose you too." His words sank into my pounding heart, but the panic clouded my thoughts. How could I do nothing? How could I stand by when the man I loved was fighting for survival? Swallowed by uncertainty, I gripped the edge of the boat, my gaze fixated on the roiling ocean, waiting for any sign of Adrian's return to the surface. In a split second of chaos, Nathan's voice cut through the storm as he shouted something about the lifebelt. He darted toward a compartment in the back of the boat, fumbling with the gear as the rain lashed against him. "If you dive, Claire, take this. To keep you afloat." Just then, a bright flash illuminated the dark waters, revealing a shocking sight that shattered my already fraying hopes. Adrian was indeed beneath the surface, but he was being pulled further out by the violent undertow. Each moment stretched into eternity, agonizing and brutal as I caught glimpses of him struggling, fighting against the waves that sought to claim him. "Please, Adrian." My voice cracked under the weight of desperation. The storm surged with renewed ferocity, seeming to mock my pleas as the ocean swallowed the image of the man I loved. Nathan returned, a red lifebelt flung towards me. "Put this on. If you jump, it will help you stay afloat." Before I knew it, my body moved on instinct, the urge to save Adrian overwhelming every rational thought. I slipped the lifebelt around my waist, but fear rooted me in place. What if I can't reach him? What if I fail? "Then he'll come after you," Ethan assured me fiercely, a promise wrapped in sincerity, but I could see the flicker of terror in his eyes. He was afraid for me, for Adrian. And in that moment, something within me cracked. "Adrian wouldn't give up on me," I whispered, summoning every ounce of courage I had left. "I can't give up on him." With Ethan's grip tightening around my wrist in a final moment of reassurance, I took a breath, the kind you only take before diving into cold water, and leaped. The world above blurred, turning into chaos as the storm enveloped me, and the cold sea rushed to greet me. I plunged into the dark abyss, the icy tendrils of the ocean wrapping around me as I fought to orient myself. Every instinct screamed for me to swim upwards, but I could only think of Adrian. Desperately, I kicked my legs, feeling the current tugging me back down, clawing against the weight of despair in my heart. As light above began to fade, first a dull glimmer, then nothing. I felt a warm presence brush against my fingers. I reached through the dark waters, each stroke demanding every ounce of strength I had left. Then, finally, my hands met the familiar warmth of Adrian's body, but the moment was fleeting, chaos crashing around us as I fought against the waves, and the weight of uncertainty thrummed in my chest. He was cold, desperately cold, devoid of the fire I had known. "Adrian!" I gasped, pulling him close, the surface above merely a vague notion. "You have to hold on to me. We'll get through this," he stirred, a flicker of life within the depths of despair. His eyes fluttered open as he floundered beneath me, but the light I craved was dimming. "Claire, I'm right here," I urged, pushing through the desperation choking me. "I won't let go. Just swim." My heart raced not from the fight but from the fear of losing him, yet, the waves enveloped us, pulling Adrian just out of reach as I strained to hold his hand. "No, Adrian. I'm not losing you," but the ocean roared back, angered by our defiance, sending ferocious currents crashing against us again. Then darkness closed in around us. The world faded to nothing but Shadowsa silence deeper than the storm surrounding us. Was I losing him? In a brilliant flash of lightning above, a wave crested massive, unforgiving. My last reserves of strength evaporated as we were engulfed, and for a heart-stopping moment, I felt nothing but dread, spiraling into murky depths. As my lungs screamed for air and my vision blurred, I grasped for him once more, hoping against hope that my hands would find his. But a new wave overtook me, separating us with a violent force that sent my senses sprawling. I could hardly feel, hardly breathe, but just as the darkness threatened to claim me, I sensed a desperate spark that jolted through my veins. And in that flicker, I understood, the storm might try to drown us, but I would fight to the bitter end. Then, a cold grip seized my hand, and as I spun around, disoriented, I gasped in horror as I realized it wasn't Adrian's hand I held but something far more sinister, pulling me deeper. Panic surged anew as my strength began to fade, and with it, hope flickered away. I was drowning, lost not only in the depths of the ocean but swirling in confusion under the weight of so many emotions: betrayal, urgency, and love all colliding within me. The current tugged me further into fear's cold embrace, but even as darkness threatened to envelop me for good, an instinct rose to the surface: a deep-seated will to fight for everything I still had, and everything I could still save. The water still churned around me, but I resolved to find Adrian again. My heart screamed for him. I kicked against the unforgiving pressure, letting sheer determination drive my limbs, reaching out into the murky depths. The memory of his touch, his laughter, our moments of warmth and connection rallied within me like a battle cry. "You can't leave me!" I gasped, though I was muttering against the swirling chaos. Suddenly, fingers intertwined with mine, not the icy grip of despair I feared, but his familiar touch. I looked up in astonishment as I broke through the surface, the storm still raging around us, raindrops slicking my face, but there he was, Adrian, fighting against the currents beside me, determination flaring in his eyes. "Hold on. We're going to be okay. I thought I lost you." The words slipped from my mouth, desperate and raw, as he pulled me closer, tucking me against his side. For those brief seconds, the world felt still as I cherished the warmth radiating between USA promise of survival against the raging storm, but just as quickly, darkness loomed again. The storm roared louder and wilder, angered that it hadn't succeeded in taking us. Waves crashed violently around us, and chaos resumed. "We have to find the lifeboat," Adrian shouted against the howling winds. I nodded, not entirely certain where it was, but the enormity of our survival pushed me forward. Together, we swam, fighting against the water that wanted to swallow us whole, every stroke fueled by the fear of what we could lose and the clarity of what we had survived together. The tempest roared around us, but my heart thrummed with a single chorus. We were alive. Then, through the tumult, as the rain poured down upon us, I saw it, a glimmer on the horizon, the lifeboat, rocking amidst the fury like a beacon of hope. A rush of adrenaline summoned the strength within both of us, and we pushed ahead. "We can do this." Adrian's voice found mine, binding me like a lifeline as I swam harder, and then I felt his hand slip from my grasp. "Adrian!" I screamed, twisting back, panic surging in my chest. I could hardly breathe. The storm pressed down on me like an iron lid, but I couldn't afford to lose him again. I fought against the tide, scanning the chaos for any sign of him. "Adrian!" Waves crashed over me, buffeting me like a fragile piece of driftwood trapped in a storm. I refused to succumb. Just then, a flash of realization struck me. I was being pulled somewhere. The violent waves dragged me below. I kicked with desperation, pushing against whatever submerged force threatened to bury me. "No!" I shouted, forcing myself up and surging through a wall of water to the surface again. Then I saw him. Adrian was struggling, but he was so close, not far from the lifeboat on the horizon. "Claire," he choked out, voice strained against the chaos. My heart fluttered with hope, but vulnerability gnawed like a predator. "I am coming," I yelled, each stroke aimed toward him, pulling with everything I had. The lifeboat loomed closer as I made my way back to him, desperately swimming with determination forged from the fear of losing everything I had fought for. But suddenly, a powerful wave slammed into me, sending me tumbling once more. Dread pooled deep within as dread shot through the currents, and for a heart-stopping moment, I lost sight of him. No, please, no, I fought against the overwhelming chaos, grappling to find him again, swallowing my panic, but then finally breaking free from the turbulence, desperately gasping for air. I could still hear his voice echoing, mingled with the raging tempest, and I clung to that sound like a desperate prayer, Claire. The one word cut through the storm, unwavering tether amidst the storm's fury. I lunged towards it as if guided by fate itself. Despite the mayhem surrounding us, I could feel the world shifting, the bond we shared illuminating my path. With each stroke, I closed the distance, the chaos swirling around me now a distant hum. My heart raced like an orchestra as I fought against the tide with renewed vigor. Then I reached him. I grasped his hand, our fingers lacing fiercely as I pulled him close. He was weak but alive, and together we surged toward the lifeboat, hearts pounding in sync. Ethan was already in the boat, his eyes wide with relief as he reached out. "You made it," he called. "We need to get back." In a moment of solidarity, Adrian's gaze met mine, and something within me unraveled. I felt the weight of everything, not just the storm, but the choices, the heartache, the old memories, and the warmth of the new. My heart might have been a battlefield, but here, in the cusp of survival, everything that had weighed me down melted away in the fierceness of our bond. When we reached the lifeboat, Ethan reached for me, tugging me in first before he pulled Adrian, together both shivering yet undeniably alive. We collapsed against one another, breaths mingling as we soaked in the enormity of our survival. "I thought I lost you," I whispered to Adrian, clutching onto his arm desperately. He smiled through his exhaustion, warmth radiating through the cold chaos. "Never again. Not after this." The storm raged on outside, but somehow, I understood the ferocity of the tempest reflected not merely in our struggle but in our resolve. As the boat struggled against the waves, we held tightly onto each other, casting aside the shadows of doubts that had previously clouded us. "Together," I murmured, and they both nodded fiercely in agreement, knowing the battles ahead wouldn't be fought alone. "Let's start anew," Adrian offered, his voice steady against the chaos. "Let's build something stronger." Ethan met my gaze, his unwavering spirit bright amidst the darkness, reflecting shared hopes for our journey ahead, one intertwined through yet another storm. And the darkness of my past would no longer consume me, I would carry the strength they had given me. As the lifeboat crested a new wave, I realized that the storm had revealed a profound truth. Love, not just for a singular person, but for choices, redemption, resilience, had always been right there, waiting below the surface. "That we can face anything, together," I whispered, the storm's fury growing quieter, a gentle reminder that our shared strength had the power to weather any tempest. That I, in the eye of that storm, knowing I had been saved, and knowing my heart had opened to love anew, I reached for both of them. Together, and somewhere, amidst the chaos, the storm enfolded us, but within that hurly-burly dance, hope burst through like the sun breaking dawn, a testament that one can always rise again.